Welcome to HomeFront Sitrep. I hope you're in for a great show today, because I'm just a veteran talking about what's on my mind and maybe yours.
You can find HomeFront Sitrep on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. You can also check out HomeFront Sitrep's YouTube channel.
Buckle up, the show is starting.
Out on the edge of the battle and back, we've carried the weight and we've walked every track. From desert dust to the fire at home, we've learned how to fight, how to stand alone. But no one tells you what comes after the war. When silence is louder than the guns we bore, that's where we speak, that's where we heal. With stories too real for Hollywood reels. Welcome to the front lines you don't always see, when warriors to battle just differently. This is our check-in, our voice, our step. This is the HomeFront Sitrep podcast. For the fallen, the fighting, and those who came home. For the brothers and sisters who still feel alone. We're holding the line with truth and respect. This is the HomeFront Sitrep podcast. For the fallen, the fighting, and those who came home. For the brothers and sisters who still feel alone. We're holding the line with truth and respect. This is the HomeFront Sitrep podcast. It ain't all medals and waving flags. There's pain in the silence and weight in the facts. But we've got a mic and a mission to share, to tell the damn truth, cause somebody's gotta care. We laugh, we cry, we cuss, we pray. We honor the ones who ain't here today. From basic to battle and back to the block, this is our rhythm, our round table talk. Welcome to the front lines you don't always see, when warriors to battle just differently. This is our check-in, our voice, our step. This is the HomeFront Sitrep podcast. Still heavy in dreams out of reach, full of lessons the textbooks could never teach. We're sounding off, no filter, no prep. This is the HomeFront Sitrep podcast. So if you're born with boots or love someone who did, if you swallowed your hurt and kept it all hid, pull up a chair, you're not alone. Welcome to the front lines you don't always see, where courage meets scars and raw honesty. This is our anthem, our truth intercept. This is the HomeFront Sitrep podcast. For the ones still standing and those we've lost yet, for every single story we'll never forget. We speak so others won't forget. This is the HomeFront Sitrep podcast. Real talk, real vets, real life. HomeFront Sitrep podcast, where the mission continues.
Welcome, everybody, to a Monday edition of HomeFront Sitrep. How is everybody doing? Man, let me tell you, today was a beautiful day here in Kentucky. I think it got up to about 60-something. I did get up this morning, frost on the window, so I had to start the truck early just so I could make sure it was clear to drive on my way into work. Got on TikTok like I normally do, hang out with the team there on TikTok with Doc James and Vet Nation Cards and everybody, and got my morning dose of therapy. That's what I call it, my morning dose of therapy, because nothing like sitting around with a bunch of other veterans and just bantering back and forth and hearing their stories. It just does something for you. It starts my day off right. And then, as I was scrolling TikTok later in the day, something that we've talked about quite a bit here on Homefront the last couple of days, last couple of weeks, the combat vets versus non-combat vets. We all signed our name on that dotted line. We all signed that blank paycheck. So if you're out there and you're a combat vet and you're knocking somebody because they served but they didn't see combat, come on, man, knock it off. We all did our service, and us in the infantry, we can't do our job without admin and logistics and supply and motor T and comm. We can't do our job without those guys. So, if you're out there and you're an infantryman, and you saw combat, and your comm guy or your motor T guys didn't see combat, man, they served just like you did. Whether they were, in the sandbox or whether they were here locally, they still supported you in your mission to make sure you can complete your mission. Um, what's going on, Lloyd Wilson? How are you, sir? What is your take on Corman? So, question on TikTok, Lloyd Wilson. He's from the same area that I am, but he don't live in Kentucky now. He said, "So, what is your take on Corman? Greenside corpsmen, which are the Navy guys that are with us Marines, we loved our corpsmen. Like my roommate over in Okinawa was my corpsman. Um, I had a really great relationship with my corpsmen. Now there are some corpsmen out there that didn't want to do, like didn't want to fire a weapon and didn't want to do the things that we did. But if you had a good corpsman that wanted to get into the mix, then they were amazing. So Corpsman, Fleetside Corpsman, I loved, or Greenside Corpsman, I'll say. They were amazing. Um, I don't know so much about, the white side, the white side, but or the blue side, whatever you want to call it. But Hospital Corpsman, yeah, I'd rather take my Greenside Corpsman any day of the week. So, but Marines do love our corpsmen. Yes, we do. And Marine Corps birthday's coming up November 10th. 250 years strong of Marines out there leading the charge. Uh, uh, blue side, yeah, Lloyd said blue side. So 250 years, the Marine Corps birthday, 250 years, November 10th. On Homefront Sitrep, we're going to have a panel of nothing but Marines. It's going to be crazy. You get a bunch of Marines together, it's going to be crazy. So, Lloyd, you were both green and blue. Nice. Yeah, I loved my Greenside corpsman. I love my Greenside corpsman. Like I said, my roommate was my corpsman. We even out in Jacksonville, when we lived off base, my corpsman was my roommate as well. So um, that was fun. Let me tell you. So I'm excited about tonight's guest. Anna Beth reached out to me, and she said, "Hey, I got this Army veteran that is doing some amazing things. Um, and I think he'd be a great guest for your show." And after, doing my dive into Donald Clack here, I was like, yeah, he's doing some cool things. And we as veterans, we are in all fields, whether we're in telecommunications, whether we're lawyers, whether we're um, aircraft mechanics, whether we're digging ditches all day long. We're everywhere. Veterans are everywhere. And Mr. Donald Clack here served 6 years, which we'll get into that. We'll let him talk about that. And then we'll let him talk about his military service. And then we'll let him also talk about what he's doing now. So, uh, are y'all ready? What's up, DV6? How are you, Nick? How are you, sir? Are y'all ready to bring up Mr. Donald Clack to the stage? Let's do it. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for taking time out of your day away from your family as well to come on Homefront Sit Rep to talk about you and what you're doing. So, if you don't mind, do me a favor, introduce yourself to the world of Homefront Sit Rep, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. As I mentioned, thanks again for having me and everyone that's listening. I appreciate you taking the time. My name is Donald Clack. I am a personal injury attorney in North Carolina with the law offices of James Scott Farrin. And as mentioned, I did serve 6 years in the military, all 6 at Fort Bragg. And I'm assuming that we'll probably get into that a little deeper, but just wouldn't be here without that time in service. And I'm really excited to be here and kind of talk about some of the things that led me to this position with James Scott Farrin that I'm in now.
Awesome, man. Well, like I said, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know being a lawyer, you guys stay pretty busy. But if you don't mind, so here you are. you served in the military. You did 6 years. So let's talk a little bit about your military service. When did you go to basic? I guess y'all call it basic because we call it boot camp. When did you go to basic, and then um, how did you pick your job and all of that?
So it's kind of a funny story, a kind of a circuitous story. I was actually 26 when I joined. So at that point, I had already gone to college. I went to the University of Georgia, graduated with a business management degree. I moved back to Columbus, Georgia, which is where I'm from. Fort Benning, home of the infantry. It was something that I grew up around, but no one immediate in my family was a member of the service. I wasn't really connected to it. My granddad, my dad's dad, retired from the military, but again, just no one really necessarily close to me that I had that connection to. But it was always, I guess, everywhere I went, there was someone in uniform. And as I mentioned, I went to the University of Georgia, graduated, moved back home in 2010. I was in sales for 3 years, and at that point, I was kind of just really spinning my wheels, a lot of a take and not a whole lot of give in my life to that point. And I knew that I was getting older in age, and I really just wanted to kind of see if I could sacrifice, for my country. I think that freedom isn't free, and obviously being kind of connected to Fort Benning and Columbus, I saw that every day. And again, at that point, I wasn't necessarily a giver, so I wanted to join. I had that undergrad degree. I could have gone OCS, but I wanted to do enlisted. I enlisted as an 11 Bravo. Went the infantry route, and then got shipped to Fort Benning, which was, I think it was maybe 5 miles from my house, was basic training. So that was kind of, it felt like a completely different world, but familiar all in the same breath.
Right. So what was it like? I'm from Kentucky, and when I went to boot camp, I had to go to Paris Island. So, a couple states away, right? And Paris Island's a friggin' island. It's surrounded by water on three sides pretty much. And my family had to, get either drive down or fly down when they come to visit for like family week and then for graduation as well. Um, what was it like for you, to be, 5 miles from your home where you grew up, and knowing that there's the possibility, because not everybody makes through boot camp or basic, that there's always that possibility, hey, I could be shipped back home if I don't make it. So what was that like for you in boot camp?
I think it was, I think the first time that I ever truly started living was in boot camp. It really just kind of showed up. Until that point, I would say, I was living in my world, and that really like opened my eyes to the world. And it was scary, and all the things, I think all the emotions you could probably imagine. But knowing that I was that close to home, and as you mentioned, the ability, that I might not, I guess, truly succeed in this new endeavor that I was trying to go down and be a different person and all these things. I think it fired me up, but it was also something in the back of my head, like, if you don't kind of assimilate as quickly as possible, then you have the potential to, kind of go home with your tail tucked between your legs, and home ain't that far. So a lot of people know what it takes to get through this. So then you're even showing that you're not worth everything that you're trying to be, even more so than you would, that I would have been had I joined at 18, per se.
Right. Yeah, because a lot of older recruits, when I went in, a lot of the older recruits had, they struggled, because we had some that were prior Army, and they came to Marine Corps boot camp and they struggled. For one, the physicality, being older and still held to the same standard that the younger recruits had to have. It was always in their back of their brain. Like, I still talk to some of the guys now that were prior service Army that came Marines. I'm still friends with them today because they did earn the EGA. And, they always tell me that because they were older, that they had to fight harder to make it through. Because, for one, if you are, in your mid-20s, and you're going back to boot camp, and you got 17, 18-year-olds that are running circles around you, because they're more than likely better in shape. Um, So they always had it in their back of their mind that, hey, I got to prove myself. And I'm assuming with you being, an airborne infantryman, after you got done with boot camp and everything, that's something that was always in the back of your head that you had to prove to yourself that you're worthy. It's not what anybody else thinks. It's what we had to do to prove that we were worthy. Because I know for me, I had to prove to myself because I come from Kentucky and I grew up poor. I mean, dirt poor. And it was my mom. She worked 2 jobs and she had 4 kids, and it was free lunches and all of that, government standing in the government line to, get stuff back then, with the WIC program and all of that, whatever, I don't even know if it was WIC back then, um, but I had to prove to myself that I was worthy to be in the military. And granted, I was, 18. I turned 18 in boot camp. Um, that I was worthy to be there. Was that something in your brain as well as being an older recruit going through boot camp and then becoming an airborne guy?
Absolutely. I think that's a great point, a great delineation, knowing that I was the age that I was, and then also trying to do all of these things, airborne. I was an 18 X-ray recruit. That's what I signed up for. So knowing that after airborne school, I'd be going to Fort Bragg to go through the special operations preparation course, and then eventually hopefully selection and things like that. I do think that, as you mentioned, it was something that was always in the back of my head that I even had to prove to myself more so than, the standard might have been the standard, but I needed to be above the standard.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So now here you are. You've completed your 6 years. Uh, was there a reason why you only did 6 years, or did you just wanna do 6 years and get on and then move on and do something else?
I would say my wife is definitely the reason that I only did 6 years. I think that had I not been married, I'd still be in. I loved it. I think it was kind of the first time in my life that I was just really good at everything. I loved everything. I mean, the people are amazing, the job's amazing, like the bigger picture is amazing, serving the mission and all the things that we did. I think, had I not been married, because, obviously, as you know, we're gone a lot more than we're home. So 6 years is a long time, especially at 26. 6 years is a long time to be away. That's kind of the heart of your life, essentially. So I knew that she had sacrificed for 6 years. So at that point, I think, I hung up my hat and kind of transitioned out for her, essentially.
Well, I mean, that makes sense because a lot of females out there here you are, you did 6 years. Your wife, your spouse, has sacrificed for those 6 years. And when it was time to reenlist or not reenlist, that's a decision that you and her made together for your family. So me, when I served from 2001 or 1997 to 2001. I got out right before 9/11. I got married early on in the Marine Corps. I caught my first wife cheating on me we got married October of 99, January or end of December of 99. I caught her cheating on me. We separated, then we wound up getting divorced. I didn't meet my wife that I'm married to now until after I got out of the military the first time. So we were in the process of dating, and my mindset was, "Hey, I'm going to do 20 years." That's what I wanted to do. So I started talking to an Army recruiter, like most Marines do. Most Marines go from Marines to the Army. I don't know why, but it's just something we do. So I started talking to an Army recruiter, had everything ready to go. I had to wait my time because they think Marines are brainwashed. So we had to reacclimate to the civilian life. And then once the 90 days was up, then I could go. Well, unfortunately, 9/11 happened. And I knew, because me being infantry, I was like, I'm going back. So me and her, we were dating. And when I went back in, we broke up because she's like, I can't be with the military guy. I just can't be with for one long distance and all that. So we broke up. Um, After I came home the second time, we got back together. Then we broke up again. Then we got back together. And then it was like, all right, I'm going into back into the Army. That's my plan. Go to Germany for 5 years. switch my MOS from infantry to telecommunications, go from E5 to E6, and and do my 20 years. That was the plan. But unfortunately, the Army said, "Well, we can't let you go into the Army." And I'm like, "What do you mean? I got 2 honorable discharges from the Marine Corps, and you're telling me I can't join the Army?" I just didn't understand it. And they're like, "Well, it's because you had asthmatic symptoms as a child." And I'm like, "That don't make no sense." I said, "You're the same doctor who let me join the Marine Corps back in 1997, but yet you're telling me I can't go in the Army." I never fully understood it. But hindsight's 2020. Now that I look back, because 20 years, November 18th be 20 years me and her have been married. The good Lord said, "Hey, this is the path that I want you to go down. If you go in the military, you and her ain't going to be married. You and her won't have the 2 beautiful children that you have." So, hindsight's 2020. Now that I look back on, that was him telling me, "Hey, this is your path." Um, and of course, I wouldn't be doing the nonprofit work that I do, and then plus also I wouldn't be doing this podcast, and I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you as well. So you got to do what's best for your family, and that's the point that I was kind of getting at there. And I know I went long winded with it, but so here you are. You did 6 years in the military. You and your wife spoke, and you're like, "Hey, I'm getting out. I'm hanging up my boots, hanging up my dog tags." And so you transitioned out. And a lot of veterans, when you transition out of the military, you lose that sense of purpose. You lose that sense of camaraderie that you had while you were in. Is that something that you faced when you got out?
Oh, absolutely. I think I still face it. And I just to go back to your point there, I think that you made a good point about kind of everything happens for a reason. And I do think that as you mentioned, kind of, life would be different, had you, I guess, retired from the military, and you wouldn't have kind of the life that you do now. And I look at it the same way. I think to transition back into your question, it is something that I struggle with every day, but I think that it really kind of empowers me to show up, for what I do on the personal injury side for our clients and things, knowing that, I did have that brotherhood and I was able to kind of go through some of the things that we go through in the military with those people, knowing that, everyone has a background, everyone has an experience. And just because I don't necessarily, know what the background or experience of my clients are, I know that they could potentially have, something similar to what I have gone through or what we went through, in combat and things like that. And I think I look at them kind of, as, the scared people, to kind of go back to basic training. We were all in the same kind of position to where we all have experience, collective experience and backgrounds, and we're all trying to, figure each other out, but we're all there for the same purpose. And I think that kind of, translates into what I do, which is why I'm so blessed to be here at James Scott Farrin and kind of to be able to have transitioned from service into almost service, it's civilian service, but going through law school and being in this position, I don't necessarily have the same, brotherhood that I did, but I think it kind of runs parallel in a lot of the same aspects. Otherwise,
Right. Yeah, that's kind of like, so I've been in telecommunications for, I don't know, long time. I did 8 years at a cable company, and then I moved to a different company. I've been here for 13 years, so I've been in telecommunications for a really long time. And being a line worker, we have that, have that bond as well. Being because when we're, whether we're climbing the high line or whether we're doing, digging ditches or whatever, we have to make sure we got each other sick. So it's kind of very, very similar to the military, because you have to trust the person to your left, you have to trust the person to your right, and if you don't trust those those guys, you got to make sure you let your boss know, "Hey, this is what's going on." Of course, in the military, we handled it a little bit different. When you didn't trust the person to the left or right, you took them to the tree line, which is old school. Um, I don't know if you can do that anymore nowadays in current military, because I think everybody gets, um, yeah, I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole, because I could go down that rabbit hole. But so we do build that brotherhood. And like my co-host Gunny, he's from Maine, I'm from Kentucky. We met on those yellow footprints outside of those hatches at Paris Island. We went to boot camp together. We graduated boot camp. We went to School of Infantry together. After School of Infantry, we went to 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines together. And we served for the first 3 years. We served together in the same company, different platoons, but we were still, same company. And after I got out, after 3 years, I went to 1-8, went on a med float. He went his way, and we kind of lost track of each other. And then the Book of Faces, we reconnected like almost 15, 20 years later. We reconnected, and we never missed a beat. We just picked up and kind of just picked up where we left off. And the brotherhood is super strong with the military. So, all right, let's move on, because we can go down that rabbit hole, but we could. All right. So, all right, you get out of the military, you go through law school. Now I don't really know how. So my wife was pre-law. I know that she didn't go to law school. She went in to take the exam, the LSAT. Is that what it's called? The LSAT. She paid the money to go do the LSAT, walked in the door and said, "No, I don't want to do this." Turned around and walked out. And I think back then it was either $100 to take the LSAT or maybe a little bit more. I can't remember. I don't know what it is, but and she just turned around and walked out because she was going to be a child advocacy lawyer. And she's like, in her heart, she's like, I just can't see taking kids out of people's homes. So she decided not to do that. And I'm like, well, you could have been a different type of lawyer. You could have chose what you wanted to be after, you graduated law school. So here you are, you get done with the military, you go into law school. What made you pick personal injury law?
I think that's kind of one of those things, I know a lot of the things that I've found myself doing in life aren't necessarily anything that I would have necessarily picked. So I think there were some mentors in place that I knew in law school and kind of I guess kept in touch with and things. And James Scott Farrin, actually the head of our litigation department, he was one of those mentors. And just kind of as I learned more about what law was and what personal injury was, especially, I knew that was something. As I mentioned, I got out of the military hoping to transition into a service-based aspect to continue kind of what I had built in those 6 years. And it's like, I don't necessarily think that I picked it. I think personal injury law kind of picked me, and I think that it continues to pick me every day. Just I guess to kind of bridge the gap between the military and personal injury law. It's very unpredictable. You don't necessarily know what you're going to come into every day. You just kind of have to pivot as necessary, and then, act on your fundamentals and things to get through the day. And I think that's something that I'm used to. And I kind of like that battle rhythm. It's not easy by any means. There's a lot of conflict. And I guess I kind of look at this, not necessarily in the same way, as the military, but to me, it is almost a profession of arms. All it takes is all you got, that kind of thing. And, showing up every day again with that 6 years of the military service. And, I'm the same person, and I kind of fall back on that every day. And thankfully, personal injury law kind of allows me to do so.
So basically you're saying personal injury law is a lot like controlled chaos.
Absolutely.
Because you never know what you're going to walk into, and that's kind of like in the military the same way, especially being infantry, airborne, or Marine infantryman. You never know what you're walking into on a day-to-day basis, and I think if you're infantry, you thrive in controlled chaos. That's like my wife will tell you. She stresses out about everything. And she's like, "Why are you not stressed?" I'm like, "It'll work out like it's supposed to." It's controlled chaos. You can't let your fears dictate how you respond to things. You just gotta control chaos and roll with it. And I so one of my close friends, Carl Truman, he's a retired colonel. He's a personal injury lawyer here in Louisville, Kentucky, and he's very successful at what he does. Of course, he's an officer. We won't hold that against him. He's the dark side, so we won't hold that against him. But it is controlled chaos. It's one of those things. You never know if you're going to have a slow day or if you're going to have a super busy day. So let's talk about a normal day in your office. What's a normal day like in your office?
I would say a normal day. It could be a morning hearing. We could be in court that morning. If we're not in court that morning, I'm here kind of bright and early. I still follow the morning PT. I wake up, and I think that if you do the hardest thing and first thing, then everything else just kind of is what it is. So I kind of, again, continue to try to follow, some form of shell of what we followed in the military with morning PT, get to work and just kind of hit the ground running. If I'm not in court that day, then it's phone calls, meetings, drafting documents, responding to emails, calling defense counsels, calling clients, talking to my paralegals, talking to other attorneys. I think it's just, again, it's very unpredictable, but I would say that it's really just, I think controlled chaos is a great way to explain it. And it is, it feels familiar, as you mentioned, and it's almost like, I look forward to coming to work, because of that controlled chaos.
Heck yeah, heck yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way because I never know what I'm walking into every day at work. We could have an easy day, we could have a hard day, and weather's coming, winter's coming. I don't want to steal that catchphrase, but winter's coming, and we never know what we're going to walk into. And it's one of those things. What's going on, Triple Threat Vets podcast? How are you guys over on TikTok land? So yeah, so winter's coming. So we control chaos is what we thrive in. Now Ty, who's Triple Threat Vets, he's a airborne guy as well, but he was at Fort 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 Campbell is where he was at. So there's a difference between what 82nd and 101st. So you are you're at 100 no, you're 82nd at Fort Bragg,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Let's ask this question since he's on here. Which one do you think's better, 82nd or 101st?
I think it depends on the mission, honestly. I did air assault school at Fort Campbell, actually, so I got to work with some of them, and I think that it's really it's hard to decide. I guess I have to stay loyal to my roots and say the 82nd, but I would say that they're not a bad alternative by any means.
Nice. See, now Ty would say that the 80 101st is better, just because he's air assault too as well. Which I think they're both equally great at what they do. Because they both have different missions. So that was a good PC answer there. I
Thank
like
you.
it. You could tell you're a lawyer.
Absolutely.
So what? All right. So we've already touched on your military service. We touched on your transition out of the military. We've talked about what you've done as a lawyer, personal injury lawyer. You recently had a big case that you won, if I remember reading correctly. What is it like when here you are, you're helping these clients to get the most money available? Because we all know insurance companies out there are going to try to lowball you at every corner. And if you get hurt in a car wreck, and the insurance company says, "Oh, I'll give you $10,000," right? And you're like, no, the what my client went through was worth more than $10,000. And then here you are, you win a big settlement like the one that you did win. What does that feel like to you to be able to that you what is it to you to know that you helped that person who was hurt and you changed their life pretty much?
I think it maybe started in my time in Afghanistan. Obviously being over there and helping a war-torn country, you know, and a population that I can't necessarily have a conversation with, but I can look in their eyes, right? And you can look in your eyes and you can see hope. You know, they look at us as the American dream. We're there to try to help them, you know, and they believe in us. And I think that I kind of look, you know, into the eyes of some of my clients as well, and I see that same hope. And I would say that that's kind of, you know, with this case that you mentioned, this family had lost their mom in a high-speed collision, and you know, it was two sons that neither one of them had their dad, and they were their mom was either their rock, and she was taken away. It was so needlessly um, taken away that you know it could have been prevented. And being able to, I think, kind of again, kind of stand in the doorway, you know, and be the first one in, knowing that I'm able to stand up in front of a jury, 12 strangers, you know, and represent the value of the loss of someone's mother. You know, I think as you mentioned, you know, unfortunately, our civil justice system is based on monetary compensation, but I think that our justice system as a whole serves a purpose in allowing people to kind of transition a story and a narrative. You know, had we not been able to stand up in court for them, they would have always been, you know, it just would have been a negative experience for them knowing that, you know, their mom, they lost their mom. But now we were kind of able to maybe, you know, hopefully provide some light. You know, I don't necessarily think that it's, you know, anything that we can, you know, I can't bring their mom back, but, you know, we can provide a different narrative moving forward to allow them to fall back on what we were able to do in court for them instead of, you know, just that one incident where they lost their mom.
Yeah, I think it would give them a little bit of comfort. Because I don't know if I was in that situation, right, and I lost my mom. Because like I said earlier in the conversation, I grew up with my mom and 4 siblings, or 3 other siblings myself, so 4 of us total. And granted, my mom, um, was from the country. She had a 7th grade education. She got pregnant very early on in life, and, we struggled. I mean, it was one of those things, but she also taught me a lot about how to how do I put this? She taught me how to do things that, because my dad wasn't there. My dad was, hit or miss. You know, he was a summertime dad. Sometimes he was there, sometimes he wasn't there. Um, so my mom basically had to be the mom and dad to teach me things as I was growing up. And, you know, some of the things that I learned, if my mom, she's my rock. I'm gonna tell you, I'm a mama's boy. My brother died in 1994. He died of cancer. He was 10 years old when he died. And my mom, I still think 30 years later, she hasn't dealt with the loss of my younger brother. He was the baby, you know. But she's still standing strong. She's still standing firm, and she's mean as a rattlesnake. But she's still, you know, if I lost my mom tomorrow due to a car wreck and negligence, let's say a semi truck hit her head on, or a dump truck hit her from behind, and or whatever, um, whatever the negligence was, I, I I'm like you. I don't think monetary value. You can't place monetary value on the life that somebody lives. But if you can bring some comfort to that family to help pay bills, you know, whether you know that whether they're stuck in debt and have mom stuck in debt, and you know that you get enough to cover all of that and then some. I think that helps ease the burden, but it doesn't eliminate the fact that mom is no longer there. So I love that, and I know for you, winning a case like that brings you joy to your heart because you have that servant heart. Because if you didn't have a servant heart, you would have never served in the military. Um, so now that you've got your big, you know, you won your big case, and you got other cases coming in. What do you do on your free time? So, like, what do you and your wife like to do? Do you like to go volunteer at veteran service organizations in your area? How do you give back to the veteran community? What do you guys do down there in North Carolina?
Unfortunately, we don't. I think that that's a great idea, and I think it's something that um, I would like to look into. I would say there's not a whole lot of free time, unfortunately. So most of my free time is spent at home with her, and we don't have any human children, but we look at our dogs as our dog children. So we have a 3-year-old Scottish Terrier, and I kind of just spend my time with him. But I think that I would like to. Now that you mentioned it, I think that it's a great idea, and I'm not sure why it's not something that I haven't pulled the trigger on to date. But I think that it's something that I'll definitely look into, and I think it's a great idea, especially kind of given from law school on some of the things that the tools and the resources that I've added to my bag. I think it would probably be even more of a unique, I guess, perspective going into helping some of those organizations.
Yeah, and you don't even I'm not even talking about monetary donations or anything, but like if there's an organization there that um, gives free legal advice, which, like I said, I focus on a lot of veteran nonprofits across the country. Um, if there's somewhere, an organization down there in Raleigh that does free legal advice, or helping the homeless, or something of that nature, um, when you do that, because right now you're already giving back to the community as a personal injury lawyer. You're already giving back, right? But then you step into the realm of helping veterans, your brothers and your sisters out there. Um, I think for me personally, it was life changing when I started doing that in 2004, and I did that up until 2020. And I'm not going to get into the details of why I resigned from the last board that I was on, but I still every now and then go volunteer at some of the local organizations, but I'm not as heavily involved. Um, for one, I'm like you. I don't have a lot of free time because when if I'm not working my normal day job, and I got a kid in college, and I got a senior, and then everything else that I got going on. But the good thing is, when you do have children, um, my kids love going with me when we go do Operation Victory, when we go demo a house. My kids would love to go swing a sledgehammer and tear up a house. It was just something they loved doing. They loved going with dad to do that. And then they got to meet a lot of great people along the way, which is great for them in the future because those are connections that they can always fall back on. So it's just one of those things. Not trying to steer you into doing that, but I think if you ever get to the point where your PTSD or your anxiety kind of overwhelms you, because it will happen. I will promise you, it does happen because it did for me and a lot of other veterans. Find your tribe, find your village, because it will help you along your journey. And have the wife tag along. I think she will enjoy that as well. So,
I think it's a phenomenal idea, and it's definitely something I'm gonna. Um, Hopefully, next time we connect, I'll give you an update on that because I think it also, like you mentioned, I think it would also help me because I have been, I got out in 2019, I guess. So it's been that long since I've really had that same connection because, I obviously have friends on this side, but it's nothing like it was on that side. And I think you don't really know until you know, and you obviously know, and everyone on here, probably knows as well. So I think it would probably help me out to be in front of some of those people again as well.
oh yeah, for sure. Um, so the PTSD is what they call that silent killer, right? And you can get PTSD from anything. You don't have to be in a combat situation. We My first experience with PTSD was in 1999. We were on a humanitarian mission in Haiti. And if you know anything about Haiti, it was a terrible place to be. Between the PTSD and the moral injury that was suffered there, and then of course, getting out of the military and then being recalled back into the military after 9/11, it does wear you down, And if you don't have like-minded people, around you that have been in similar situations that you have went through, it will wear you down, and it eventually will catch up to you. And your job alone, being a personal injury lawyer, is high stress. So I think volunteering at a local nonprofit that helps veterans will help ease your stress level, if that makes sense to you.
Absolutely. I think it's a great idea.
So, all right, my friend. Let's see, what else can we touch on? Let's see. Is there anything that you want to talk about? Let you lead the discussion going forward here. Is there anything
I'll
that you
just
want to?
say, kind of going back to the beginning, we kind of hit on, the potential for failure and things like that in basic and moving forward. And as I mentioned, I was an 18 X-ray, but I went through SOPC, the Special Operations Preparation course, and then went through the full selection process. And at the end, I wasn't selected, and I went to the 82nd. That's how I got to the 82nd. And I think at that point, again, maybe that was the first real thing that I had failed in life, but it was, devastating. But as you mentioned, kind of with your path, that things kind of happen to us for a reason. And I wouldn't be here had I gotten through selection. I have some friends that are in special forces and in the Ranger Regiment and things like that. And I know that, had I gone their route, I wouldn't necessarily be here, obviously, but then I wouldn't have been able to do some of the things that I even did in the military. So I think that I would just like to, say that failure isn't always the end of the line. I think that, it's not necessarily what happens to you in life, it's how you react to it. And I don't think I necessarily had the tools to react to it properly at that time. But looking back on it, as you mentioned as well, that hindsight's 2020. I wouldn't change a thing. And I think that, if anyone's listening, they're going through some stuff, maybe they had a recent failure, I think that you could probably transition and translate it into something positive if you just kind of, again, going back to your looking into maybe volunteering, find a tribe, turn into a positive, and kind of move forward from there. So I would just like to, I guess, say that, knowing that at the time I viewed it as a failure, but now I look at it, as almost a win.
Right. Y and that's something that we as veterans, military personnel, I don't wanna even just say veterans, but sometimes when we fail at things, we take it too hard on we make it too hard on ourselves when we fail at things. And sometimes we have to get the big picture and be like, all right, look, I failed this time. Let me pick myself up and try again. And if you fail, try again, and you keep trying again. And it's kind of like the VA system now, like going through the VA process. So I didn't go to the VA right away. I didn't start my VA journey until 2022. And it's designed to make us give up. Like, literally, they fight you tooth and nail. I'm at 60% right now, and I just did my reeval, and a lot of the things that I need to be approved, they're like, "Oh, not service connected." But if I give up, I'm only hurting myself. I'm not hurting anybody else out there. I'm hurting myself. Um, I'll read that comment here in a minute, Sharice. So I'm hurting myself. Um, I'm not hurting my wife. I'm not hurting my kids. I'm just hurting myself. So don't give up. If once you fail, don't give up. You got to keep pushing forward. And I know a lot of people out there um, will preach that. It's hashtag team never quit. You never quit, never give up, and just keep moving forward. And if you don't make, like, let's say, all right, infantry, me, right? If I wanted to go recon or scout sniper and I failed, well, more than likely there's a reason why the man upstairs is saying, hey, you could try again, or you can move on and do what I want you to do. And a lot of times, and I'm not trying to get real religious because I'm not super religious, but those are signs, hey, that you need to move in a different direction. That's the way I look at it. It's him upstairs telling me, hey, you need to do something else. So there's a comment here on TikTok from Miss Charisse. She lives up in Vermont. She says successful people have positive mindset. Failure is just another option, is what she just said.
I
So
love that. Yeah, I think there's no failure if there's only winning and learning. I'm a big quote guy too, so I love that, Sharice. Thanks for sharing it. I think again, it's podcasts like this that you putting yourself out there, that we can look into, ways to kind of find our own tribe. And I know that a lot of people go through a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, they're all problems. We all go through the same problems, but I think that if you're willing to put yourself out there, as you mentioned, and kind of um, I guess, establish what you want to do and do it. I mean, take me, for instance, I joined the military at 26. I never thought that I would be a personal injury attorney at 39. It's 13 years and I feel like I've climbed a pretty big mountain. I didn't have any lawyers in my family. It wasn't even on my radar at 26 when I joined the military, but having that time in service and allowing, I guess, essentially my world to be expanded has put me into this position. And I feel blessed every day to be here. I'm a lawyer in and of itself, but being a lawyer at James Scott Farrin, I mean, Jim is a phenomenal person, and I think that, as they say, it trickles downhill, and he's a phenomenal person to everything to trickle downhill for, because I mean the organization he has built has allowed me to step in the shoes for that family and represent the value of the loss of their mom to 12 strangers, and I'm just one person in a bigger organization. This is what we do every day, and I get to be here and do this every day. It's kind of the same thing about it's why I wear a suit to work every day. The uniform mentality, putting on the uniform in the military. I knew that I was part of a bigger service in a bigger organization, and then I needed to show up for those around me. And I think that I kind of look at this the same way. So I'm very blessed to be here, but I'm even more blessed to have had that 6 years in the military to kind of open my eyes to even consider this option.
heck yeah, man. No, I love that, man, because military will open a lot of doors that a lot of us wouldn't think would be open. And what I mean by that is, here we are. We're highly trained. Whether you're infantry, whether you're a comm guy, whether you're logistics, whether you're supply, whatever, you're highly trained at your job. Prime story. There was this guy that I know. He did 20 years in the military. He was a supply logistics guy. Um, when he was getting out, he was trying to get a job at one of the big, whether it was UPS or Amazon, I can't remember. But they were like, "Well, we're going to start you out at the bottom of the barrel. You could be the lonely warehouse guy." And he got involved with a veteran nonprofit that helps veterans transition out of the military. So they rewrote his resume and they took everything that he did. He made sure that all of the gear that infantry guys needed was where it needed to be when it needed to be there. So he did all that logistics. And so when they got done redoing his resume, they resubmitted it to the same company. Well, they hired him on as their top dog. So it's all about um, the things that we do in the military. It makes us great leaders. Now, I'm going to say that there are some piss poor leaders that come out of the military. Don't get me wrong, because there are. We all had that one lieutenant that got us lost doing land nav because he had a handheld GPS and he put it in the wrong coordinates. But it's one of those things that we lead from the front. We don't lead from the behind. And if we're doing it, if our guys are doing it, then we're doing it as well. We're not sitting behind a desk saying, "Hey, you do this," and you don't do it. So that's one good thing about the military, and I think that transitions well into being a lawyer, personal injury lawyer. You want to do what's best for your clients to make sure that they are properly represented in the courtroom and that you can best tell their story and let the jury decide from there. So, man, I think what you're doing is amazing, and can't wait to follow your journey. I have followed you on pretty much all the social media that I could find you on. Um, so I'm gonna follow your journey, and we're gonna keep in touch and see how you do and going forward. So
And thank you for this opportunity. I can't thank you enough for, I mean, I think that this has really kind of um, allowed me to step back into those 6 years. And, I feel like, we just met, but you're a brother already. It's just amazing to me how, if you have put on the uniform, it doesn't matter where you are. If had we met in a gas station, I think we still would have had the same connection. It does, just because we're talking to each other in this podcast. I think, and that's the power of what we did and who we were, and kind of what we are able to do moving forward. And then you're the epitome of that with this podcast. So thanks for everything that you do. I think it was an honor to be here and have the opportunity just to talk to you. So thank you.
well, thank you again for taking time out of your personal time. I don't know if you're still working or not, but out of your personal time and your business time to come hang out with me for an hour. And I would agree with you. If when you serve in the military and you go to a bar or you meet at a gas station and you see another veteran, we have that instant connection. And then the longer that we talk, we build that bond even stronger. So I want to say thank you for coming on and telling your story. And I'm going to try to get you on some other veteran podcasts as well. Triple Threats Vets podcast, Misfit Nation, and a few others that I know, just so we can get your story out there and get you kind of reintegrated into the veteran community. Just even if it's just for temporary purposes, it might build that flame within you to say, "Hey, maybe I should go out and volunteer and rebuild my veteran tribe." Because I'm gonna tell you right now, civilians don't understand us in the military, unless you're a spouse of somebody who served in the military. Then you understand, but I don't think you'll ever fully understand the things that we go through. And like your wife, you and her were married when when you went to boot camp. I don't think she fully understands the things that you've done and saw while you were in the military. And sometimes it's hard. It's hard for us to speak to the ones we love the most about the things that we're dealing with. Like my wife will tell you, we've been together 23 years. We'll be married 20 years this November, November 18th. So just right around the corner. She didn't learn a lot of things about me until I started doing this podcast, when I started opening up to other veterans on the show. So I think if you get around other veterans, because a lot of the negative things that happen when we served in the military, we kind of compartmentalize and push down behind, down low, and we try not to think about it. So if you get around other veterans, that f- that emotions will come rushing back, and you'll be like, oh man. And then you'll start remembering stories and stuff like that. It's just be ready for that. But I tell you what, if you do find your tribe there in Raleigh, North Carolina, or the outskirts of Raleigh, um, that I would look for your mom and pop organizations. Don't go for the big ones. Look for the mom and pops. Those are the ones that you're going to build that camaraderie and that bond with, more so than the big name organizations. So yeah, I definitely want to say thank you for coming on here and hanging out with me for sure.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna drop you down. If you got to go hang and get to the wife and doggos, fur babies, go ahead. If you want to hang out and we can chit chat afterwards, that's up to you. But I do want to thank you again, my friend.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for listening. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Hey, you're very welcome, my brother. Ladies and gents, Mr. Donald Clack, personal injury lawyer in Raleigh, North Carolina. 6-year Army veteran. Doc James, I see you're in chat on TikTok. He is air assault. He was with at Fort Bragg, did 6 years with the 82nd Airborne. He is an attorney with the law firm of James Scott Farrin, down in Raleigh, North Carolina. So if you're in the North Carolina area around the Raleigh Durham area, and you got personal injury, whether you got hurt at work, whether you got hurt on the freeway I-40 there, um, reach out to James Scott Farrin and reach out to Mr. Donald Clack. They'll take care of you there. Um, so let's see. So he's in South, so he can practice in North Carolina and South Carolina. His drive as taking on clients in tough spots and acting as their advocate. My goal is not to avoid challenges. My goal is to solve them. That's his motto, his mantra there. So heck yeah, man. Um, so we're going to end the show here just shortly, but I want to talk about upcoming episodes. We got some really cool ones that are coming up. So November 9th, I do have one scheduled, but for some reason it's not on the calendar. I have to go back and and put that on. November 10th, Marine Corps birthday, Simplified Devil Dogs. We are going to have an all panel of all Marines on the show that night, talking about all things Marine. So we're going to have Marine Corps veteran theory. We're going to have Josh Cole, known as the unapologetic veteran. He'll be on. We got Travis Clark, another Marine, and then I got a few other guys that said they'll be here. So we're going to have a lot of Marines on November 10th for the Marine Corps birthday. So I'm super excited about that. And then we got some we got Matt with the Life Liberty show coming up on November 16th. The 17th, I got the Marine Corps League meeting. And then I got a couple episodes on the 23rd and 24th. And then we got to schedule some for December. And then at the end of the year, of course, we take our 2-week break. We've got some pre-recorded episodes that we're going to throw out. They're the season recap, 2025 recaps. So we're going to break it down into 4 quarters. All right. Have a good night, Miss Charisse. So we're going to break it down to 4 quarters. So that last the last 2 weeks of December, be 4 episodes, all pre-recorded. So that's going to end out our 2025 season. Can't believe this year's gone by really, really fast. But it is about that time. So let's do this. Hashtag you're not alone, guys. Don't let your dark days win. This right here. In the silence of your struggles, remember, though unseen, you are deeply held in the hearts of others. You are not alone. And then I'm going to throw this up there. To every veteran who carries unseen scars, know this: you're not alone. The battles within don't have to be fought in silence, because your brothers and sisters still stand beside you. The uniform may come off, but the bond remains, and together we heal, we rise, and we carry each other forward. That's what we do, and that's what we do in the military. We leave no man or woman behind. So why do we do that in our civilian life after service? It's all about not whether you're a combat vet, non-combat vet, it don't matter. We're all veterans. We all signed our name on that dotted line. We all signed our name on that dotted line. So together we heal, we rise, and we carry each other forward. As long as there are toxic veterans out there that are cutting down other veterans, we can't begin to heal. But once we bond together, we heal, we rise, and we carry each other forward. And then this hashtag be someone's stranger. Guys, I talk about this all the time. We as humans, we're more apt to talk to a complete stranger than the ones we love the most. So if you're out and about and you see somebody that looks like they're having a bad day, go up to them, say, "Hey, how you doing?" And if they give you the red flags, "I'm okay, I'm hanging in there, I'm living a dream," ask the next hard question: how are you really doing? But be ready for that conversation, because it could be a 5-minute conversation, could be an 8-hour conversation. You have to be ready for that conversation. And then it takes a village, man. Gunny talks about this all the time. We have this device right here, right? Our phone. We have in our contacts, a lot of people in our contacts, do that cell phone roulette. Scroll through, boom, whoever it lands on, call that person. If they don't answer, leave a message. Say, hey, man, it's Willis. Just calling and check in on you, brother, sister, whoever it is. If they don't, and leave a message, and then do it again until you get a hold of somebody. You never know. You might be the voice that person needed to hear that day to save their life. So do cell phone roulette, man. I challenge each and every one of you guys and ladies out there that are watching now or listening later, whatever. Do cell phone roulette. And then I want to thank our partners, man. Let's take this off. Heroes Media Group, Adam Bird. Go to heroesmediagroup.com. Check out everything that Mr. Adam Bird has built with HMG. HomeFront Sitrep is a proud family member of the HMG family. So go check out heroesmediagroup.com. Reese Across America Radio, man, I can't tell you how much I love the Reese Across America team, the Reese Across America Radio team. Jeff Pierce and his team, they are phenomenal. So go check out reaseacrossamerica.org/radio. That's www.reaseacrossamerica.org/radio. It's scrolling across the bottom of the screen. You can find HomeFront Sitrep on there Thursday nights, 11 p.m. Eastern. That's Thursday nights, 11 p.m. Eastern. So go check out Reese Across America Radio. And then Military United podcast streams. Go check them out on Facebook. MUPS is what we call it. So go check out MUPS. Then you got Elite Engraving. Go check them out on Facebook. It is a small veteran-owned company in Kentucky. They made this amazing hat here for us. Same flag, same oath.com. Scrolling across the bottom of the screen, it's Got Your Six Culture. Matt and Becky Johnson outside of Katy, Texas. Amazing shirts. They do all kinds of things. They give back to the veteran community as well. We have our shirt. Uncle Sam is wearing it, marine it down. So go get you a shirt from same flag, same oath.com, or you can go to homefrontsitrep.com, check out our merch site. You can see our hats and our shirts. It's linked there. Also want to give a big shout out to Brent and Brian Casey at Valor Coins and Pins. They are phenomenal. They made our challenge coin here at HomeFront Sitrep. Make sure I put it up there right. Made this amazing challenge coin here. It's got our logo, and then our hashtag Be Someone Stranger. And then on the back, it's got all the branches. And then over here is this hashtag We Got Your Six, which I think on the next one, I'm going to change it up to We Got Your 360. So, yeah, I'm going to definitely do that. And then, hang out with us. First Wednesday of the month, we got our Art of Podcasting on cavarts.org. If you're a veteran, go to cavarts.org. That's Challenge America Veterans in the Arts. So if you want to learn how to play the guitar, you can go on there and get connected with Guitars for Vets. You want to learn how to do leatherworking, you get on there and you can see leatherworking, metal forging, a little bit of everything. So go check out cavarts.org. I think that's it, my friends. I think that is it. So, like we always say on HomeFront Sitrep, stay safe out there. We got your six. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show.
Suggestions and comments are always welcome.
Cannot wait to have another great show with y'all.
Don't forget you can find HomeFront Sitrep on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Stay safe out there. I got your six.